Looks like I'm on the air. Hey, everyone. Please let me know if you're hearing me okay. I just got a new laptop. Should have done a dry run before this. So just let me know if you're hearing everything fine. I'm just using the laptop microphone at the moment. We're going to get this started in just a couple more minutes. We're going to start off the first hour with a discussion on the natural and synthetic materials that are used in putting together the notes and accords of violet and iris. So once again, for anybody who's tuned in, the 12 people who are tuned in right now, if somebody can just verify in the chat that you're hearing my audio okay, so I'm not just here miming. Loud and clear. Thank you very much to Baboosh. It's much appreciated. You'll have to pardon me. I'm not sure if the audio is pristine, but at least you folks can hear me. So after 7 years of using my MacBook Pro purchased in 2017, it has been retired. I now have a MacBook Air, a nice 15-inch, a little bit more room to work with. I'm just getting used to it here. We're going to take a look at the chat here. We seem to have a DDLD Stinkwell, which I'm fairly certain is neither DDLD or whoever Stinkwell is, saying, "Greetings, fellow aficionados of fragrance. Are you prepared to embark on a scented journey through the enchanting realms of violet and iris notes? Let us immerse ourselves in the delicate symphony of aromas awaiting our senses." He proceeds with "Egoist? Ah, indeed, a harmonious blend intertwining the delicate essence of rose with the rich earthy notes of sandalwood enlivened with the subtle allure of tobacco. Lest we forget the lovely ambrette that is in the dry down. We have the lovely Philippe here. Scent of the day is Egoist. And we have Regis Moncton. Thank you for confirming that you can hear me fine. And hello to you, Pat Lester. We have 18 people who are tuned in. If anybody else wants to participate in the roll call, we're going to get things started very soon. I have all of these materials in front of me. And I'm hoping that I can demonstrate what some of these a couple of these natural materials look like, including the orris root and the violet leaf absolute that I have. So we'll see if we can swing that. Not entirely sure if it is in fact Chadwell Stinkwell, but it could be. It is the DDLD part that is throwing me off, though. I suppose rumor has it that he may be Chaz Stinkwell. I'm not inclined to believe that, but I don't want to burst anyone's bubble. Dwayne! My little friend, my little birdie. Thank you very much. I hope you can tune in for the entirety of the stream. I am not going to permaban you because I am not uptight. I have a sense of humor. I've long learned to not take these things too seriously and to just have fun with it. And hi, Fernando. I hope that your package has already reached you. I know that it was sent via ground, which takes some time. But if it did, I hope you are getting pleasure out of the various perfumed goodies that we sent to you. Regis Moncton recently added Dolce & Gabbana Velvet Incenso. It has become his new favorite church incense fragrance so far. And I can't say that I have tried it, but I will make a note of it to sample it. Let's kick things off here. We have 19 people who are tuned in to the live stream. Like I said, don't be shy. Just say hello. You don't even have to partake in the conversation if you're a wallflower. Let's get this started. We're going to start off with the violet materials. Now, this is going to include those accords and notes for violet flower and violet leaf, because both come from the particular violet species Viola odorata. Now, the violet flower has a very low yield for scented material, and it is prohibitively expensive. So throughout much of history, in order to attain that violet note, we have had to use primarily synthetics. So I have a book here that I recommend. This is Jean-Claude Ellena, Atlas of Perfumed Botany. This is also wonderfully illustrated by Karen During-Froger, and he covers all of the perfumed botanicals with the sections for woods and barks, leaves, flowers, fruits, gums, resins, seeds, roots. The leaves section just so happens to have violet, and the reason for that is most of the time the botanical material, well, pretty much all of the time now, because violet absolute is really not violet flower absolute is, I don't think it's produced at all, not since the early 20th century. So violet leaf is the botanical material that is mostly used in perfumery, so he chose to put in the leaves section. And I'll show you the section here. Give it a good look. Let's get to those leaves. It probably would help if I check the page so we're not thumbing through. Page 48. And here we have it. Here is the violet section. Let's try to get a decent enough view. We have a bit of glare here. Lovely illustration here, if you can see. And that illustration shows a couple of bottles that are examples of violet fragrances that he discusses. And what he mostly chats about here is the violet leaf absolute. Now, if you are interested in this book, there is a link to purchase the book in the description of this live stream and in the description of all my videos. So if you want to purchase Atlas of Perfumed Botany on Amazon, there is a direct link. It's a wonderful book. All right. Back to the chat here. Scent of the day for Fernando's Dior Homme. Oh, fragrance enthusiast. That's not very nice. You said that to Fernando? Or is that just some playful ribbing? We can adjust the sound. Thank you for the constructive feedback. We can adjust the music so it isn't too overbearing. Hi, Miss Shi, Junkie San, scent of the day. I Miss Violet. That's is that a different company? Hello, supply and demand. Hommage à l'homme. That would be more violet flower that is featured there. Or maybe a combination of violet leaf and violet flower. But definitely I pick up violet flower. I definitely pick up what is going to be one of the first materials we're going to be talking about, which is alpha ionone. And hello, Noah Drucker. Scent of the day, Papillon Salon. And then it started snowing, and he figured he'd give King Blue one last wearing this evening. And I'm not sure if I already highlighted your comment here, AM, but great to see you. So let me know, guys. Usually the music is fine in the background because I'm using my external, I usually use my external headphone, but I had some last minute technical issues with it. So if it sounds okay now, just let me know. I generally like to have a little bit of a soundtrack, but it is optional if you would choose to have it removed. I have no idea where that little like came from, a little bubble over here. But that was cute. So, ionones. What are ionones? Why don't we talk about that? Because ionones do have a big role in the way that violet smells like, specifically violet flowers. So ionones, The origin of the word actually is from Greek, ion, meaning violet. Ionones. These are chemical substances that are part of a group of compounds that are known as rose ketones. So if you remember in the rose stream that we did, I was going over the ketones that are found in the scent of rose, like damascones and damascenones. So these ionones are aroma compounds. They're in essential oils. They're in botanical materials. They're in rose oil. And they can also be produced with natural feedstocks and synthetic feedstocks. We have alpha ionone and we have beta ionone, and those are the two that we're going to start off with. Alpha ionone is the core of what makes the violet flower smell the way that it does. Great to hear that, Fernando. I'm glad that the music sounds fine in the background. Here it is. This is alpha ionone. It can be produced naturally or synthetically. So natural perfumers may want to gravitate to the natural version of alpha ionone so that they can call their perfume natural. However, alpha ionone, chemically speaking, is exactly the same whether there's a natural feedstock or a synthetic feedstock. So there really isn't any chemical difference. And when you smell alpha ionone, you immediately will recognize it. It will be a light bulb in your head and it will make you realize, aha, that, I know that smell. And then you realize that that's the violet. That's the violet smell that you find in fragrance. It is naturally found in things like blackcurrants, blackberries, raspberries, black tea, plum, and peach. Stone fruits of all different kinds have these alpha ionones as part of their flavor and fragrance profile. However, we can't extract them from these fruits. These fruits do not have oils because they're mostly water, so we can't really get botanical materials out of them. Now, the source for this natural isolate that I have is Litsea cubeba essential oil. So we're not going to get too much into the chemistry because we don't want things to be too high level and too heady. So we'll just keep it as simple as possible. But alpha ionone is what really makes up a great part of what is that delicate aroma of violets, the flowers themselves. Remember, it's not just any standard garden variety violet. The violets that may be growing on your lawn may not be viola odorata. So you may wonder, why don't these violets have a scent to them? Because only certain violet species have a scent to them, including viola odorata, which is the one that is most fragrant. So to describe alpha ionone, it's warm, it's woody, floral with berry notes. And even if a violet note isn't specifically what a perfumer has in mind, it can be used to lighten other notes and create a more delicate and floral base accord in a fragrance. Now, this ionone, alpha ionone, has a pair, which also often shows up in violet notes and accords, and that is beta ionone. Who are you calling a beta, huh? Well, this beta ionone is pretty kick-ass. So beta ionone is a little bit more woody. It is a bit more kindred to orris, actually. So you're going to find beta ionone used as much with orris, which is the root of the iris, either Iris pallida or Iris germanica. We'll get to that in a bit. There is a woody berry powderiness, floral, fruity, even some aspects that remind one of freesia flowers. It's also very useful in the formulation of a Boronia, which is a flower that is native to Australia. We won't get into it too much, but that would be a cool one to explore in the future, the flower of Boronia. But this is indispensable also in violet compositions. It emphasizes some of those fruity, raspberry-like back notes. And it has this good substantivity, meaning that it really fixes and lasts in a composition, and it's used in all areas of perfumery. If you think about the woody qualities, the berry qualities, you're gonna imagine that it'll be useful in woods and in berry notes. But it is very important in the construction of a violet note or accord. Now, we also have other ionones that we work with, or ionone bases and blends that are quite interesting that I have here. This is alpha ionone white cœur. Cœur, as in heart in French. White cœur. Warm, woody, balsamic. It is the floral odor of deep sweetness and this moderate tenacity to it. And this, when you smell alpha ionone white cœur, which is this is a different fractionation. It smells even more like the smell of actual violet flowers. And it has a fixative quality to it. So you could use primarily the cheaper alpha ionone and then boost it with this alpha ionone white cœur. Then we have another one, which is a methyl beta ionone cœur. Let me make sure that I have it within reach here. Give me a moment. We have a lot of them here. Some really cool ones, actually. All right. So methyl ionone beta cœur. This is also a delicate floral violet note. And it has somewhat more green qualities to it than alpha ionone white cœur. So it's kind of a combination of violet flower and violet leaf. Here it is. Yeah, and there is, and also I'm picking up some of the orachy quality to it. See, this is the why I paired the two together, because violet and iris are kindred spirits. They're close cousins. They could be even siblings because of the similarities in their scent profiles. Not a lot alike, but not a lot different. If that makes sense. This is the methyl beta ionone cœur. And then we have ionone extra, BHT, which means that it is preserved with a BHT, but it's an ionone extra. Try to locate that. And I'm going to get to your comments in just a second. I see that we have a very active comments right now. We have 29 people tuned in. Thanks to each and every one of you for tuning into this Notes and Accord stream for Violet and Iris. This is ionone extra BHT produced by IFF. There's a little sample that I have here. So it would take a trained nose to really be able to discern the differences, right out of these little vials. But this one, from what I recall of experimenting with it, this is a little bit more floral than the other ionones. So it really pushes forward the floral nature. And from my notes, it is quite useful for other floral accords like rose or Baronia, which I mentioned earlier, freesia. So that's ionone extra BHT, another ionone. And remember, all of these ionones are based on those two, alpha ionone and beta ionone. These are all just different variations, extractions, fractionations, distillations, bases that are available to the perfumer. And there's some other cool proprietary bases that I have sitting over here. This one right here is Violif. Violif. This is very powerful. Now, what I love about this base, this vinyl base, very powerful, very green, but it also has this hint of like very, very unusual cantaloupe and even walnut. And it adds these green floral violet notes to applications where aldehydes are not applicable. It is also known as violet nitrile. So this is not an ionone, this is a nitrile, which is an entire different chemical family. It's a violet nitrile. The brand name is this is this is the Violif, actually. This is the one with the fruity cantaloupe. That's how I was like, wait a second, I'm not picking up the walnut on this one. This is the one with this is more floral and green, and it's fruity cantaloupe, and it's banana. This is the base, but Vinyl, which I actually do have here as well. Getting my notes sort of confused here. I was like, almost the power of suggestion almost made me convinced that I was actually smelling vinyl. Vionyl. So Violif is what we just were smelling, and then there's Vionyl. Let me see if I have the Vionyl there. I might actually have it sitting over here. Might not actually have Vionyl with me. We'll move on to another one. This is Neofolione. Yes, that's Neofolione. This one is very melody. This is so interesting. Green, it's floral, it's fresh, intense, cucumber aspects. There is there's interesting sort of adjacency that can come from violet and cucumber. So you'll find that the two really, they do get along quite well together. So this imparts a freshness and a diffusion. It is a top and mid-note notifier, so that's Neofolione. Next one we have here is nonadienol. This is diluted in DPG, nonadienol. Very leafy and watery. So this would be just as useful for violet leaf as well. Ooh. It kind of reminds me like of the smell of like fresh vegetation. Very cool stuff. Yeah, definitely a material that would be useful more so for violet leaf. We're going to get to the natural material soon, but that's nonadienol. This one here, this is alpha ionol. This is an interesting, elegant violet vetiver note. Very mellow though. Cedary in its undertones. Interesting stuff. Now we're going to get to two that are one here that is it's a real substantial heavy hitter when used when creating violet. This is Isaraldine 95, otherwise known as methyl ionone gamma. Flowery, woody, spicy, amber accords. It's a fine violet note. This is a violet blender. So if the perfumer is motivated to impart a violet-like quality without necessarily building a whole accord, this would be particularly useful. It brings volume and diffusion to a perfumer's compound. There's a lot of them. This is Violetine. Violetine, this is some fascinating stuff. Fruity, green, violet leaf. Reminiscent of methyl octene and methyl heptene carbonate, which we'll get to next. Galbanum-like. This can be used as a replacer for what we're going to talk about next, which is very noteworthy, actually, especially for fans of Fahrenheit. This is used as a replacer for a strong green violet leaf note. There's even like a bell pepper effect to it. But let's get to methyl octene carbonate. And here it is. I have a little vial of this. Now, methyl octene carbonate is now highly restricted. There's a replacer now. This can only be used in traces with a replacer and the violetine that I just shared to boost and build it. And these replacers have allowed Fahrenheit to flourish once again and smell a lot like it did about 15 to 20 years ago or older. But methyl octene carbonate, I actually first learned of this from Brian Eno, one of my favorite musicians, because he is also fascinated in scent and in scented materials. If you smell this, you will immediately recognize it from Fahrenheit. It is a very potent green violet leaf material. Vegetal, cucumber-like, oily. So that's where it was actually overdosed by the perfumer, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Overdosing is what creates these innovations in perfume, and it was overdosed in Dior Fahrenheit to create that effect, which is almost like petrol, oil, motor oil, gasoline, and it combines with that leatheriness of Fahrenheit to create that whole ambience to Fahrenheit, and that's methyl octene carbonate. Brian Eno mentioned this, that he was so fascinated with the fact that it smelled so much like gasoline. Not exactly like it. It doesn't have the fumes of gasoline, but those back notes of gasoline. I'm going to get to the chat because I see that the chat is really active, and I'm thrilled to see that. And we'll move on to discussing more of the materials here. Just going to make sure I have them kind of put aside. Got to go back just a little bit. We have some great commentary here. We have that shadow, my likeness. Look at that. Lovely little violets in your avatar. Greek gods love their violets and tails. Yes. So much whimsy to the violet. It was beloved throughout the ages. Symbol of Aphrodite and her son. Why are you picking on Fernando? Is this something that Fernando, let me know if this is something that you approve of or if this is targeted. If it's just some playful jabs, then that's fine. Venus made the violet blue, one of Zeus's gazillion lovers. Io pronounced, yes. Thank you so much for the input here. Hello. And to hide from Hera, his wife. Hera was suspicious of this cow and demanded it as a gift. Hera then made violets for Lo to eat and send a gadfly to pester her. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for contributing. This is very fascinating. This whole side of it, I love it. Hello, Paroli. Fernando says, I heard someone saying that in order to recreate the iris note, you have to mix those iones and maybe one more. Is that true? It is. We're going to get to that in a little bit. We're going to actually get to something also called irones, which are also more kinds of ketones. And those are more specific to Oris and the iris note. Crowley says, I've revisited the House of Byredo last week, and I've noticed all the creations seem to have the ozonic violet note as the core DNA of the house. And it seems that the shadow of my likeness uses exclusively Oris, the root of iris. Remember, not just any iris. Iris pallida, Iris germanica. Those are two where we procure the aromatic Oris root from. So not just any flag iris will do. Not any, you can't just use whatever iris is in your garden and expect. There may be some scented material, maybe fragrant, but not necessarily with the potency of those two. I'm charmed, Pearly, thank you. And that shadow my likeness makes a very good point, because irises themselves, certain species of iris, do have a fragrance. And that fragrance may have some similarities to that of the orris root, or it may not, because different irises have different fragrance feels and profiles to them. Some of them can smell like grape, like Concord grape. Others can smell a little more spicy, and then still others may smell more violet or orris-like. But we don't get any material, any botanical material used in perfume from the flowers themselves. They can't. They don't yield anything. So what we do get are from those certain irises, the root, the orris root, which we'll be looking at soon. And we have Fiedek Weiss. Greetings. Oh, how I'm happy to be awake for the stream. What a nice topic, sitting here listening with some irisandre, which I'm going to be sharing later. And Violetta Dessus by Guerlain. Violet à dessus. Yes. Okay. You're affirming what I was just mentioning earlier. I think I have the Parman theme here, as a matter of fact. Let me check. It may be here, or I may have not have been. I do at least have notes for it, but that one is quite powerful, and that's definitely like Parman theme, like Parma Violet, like sweet, very just like violet sweets. Like the actual Parma violets, or if you're familiar in the U.S., Choward's violet candies. Very diffusive, yes. Oh, if you read his writing, he's been into perfumery. He's done a lot of writing on it. At some point, I should get some of my books where he does cite his explorations in scent. Oh yeah, I think that might actually be where I have read some of his thoughts on scent and perfume. That particular article. So you don't know who Fragrance Enthusiast is? You don't care? I'll and if he crosses the line, I'll do what I need to do. But just wanted to make sure. All right, so let's get back here. We have some more to share. Did I already talk about Liferome? This is Liferome. This is another one. This is a little bit more pear-like. It's grassy. This is used in trace amounts. Yeah, very much like a combination of violet and pear. Apple, too. It's used in fruity bases, and it's also used in violet, muguet, so lily of the valley. This is also used in, it's because of its tenacity and its willingness to hold, and it's escaping me exactly what the terminology is. It has a certain ability to retain itself under high temperatures. If somebody can help me out with the exact way of articulating that, but this has been used in fabric softeners, personal care products, lotion, shampoos, Liferome. So it might be familiar to some people. You might say, I know, I recognize that. Yes, violet pastilles. Anis de Flavigny is another great one, where you have the violet flavor in the exterior, and then in the interior you have that anise. We're going to get to Orris pretty soon. I think we've covered a lot. We have covered a lot here. Another one is Undercavitol. Undercavitol. This is a very unusual material. It's also known as violet decenol. This is a brilliant ingredient for many floral blends. Floral, fruity, interesting trace components of lily of the valley, very natural, violet-like, even linden blossom, used in so many different accords, but it is sort of like it is in that kind of violet family of materials. The core of it is violet, but it can be used in so many different applications. That's Undercavitol. Undercavitol. And then moving into a woodier direction, this is one that's one of my favorites. This here is Coavone. Coavone's very cool because it's a very woody violet. And there is something that reminds me, it smells like a cedar hope chest filled with violets. Then another woody one is dihydroianone beta. So this has just as much a woody This actually is more commonly used to lend some violet facets to woods. Thank you very much, AM. Yes, please, if you haven't already done so, please don't forget to hit the like. We have 19 people who are tuned in here. All right, we're getting closer to Orris here. We have a few for Orris. We're going to move over to Orris. Oh, this is the methyl octene carbonate replacer. Smells almost exactly like methyl octene carbonate. This is why Fahrenheit had a renaissance. All right, moving right along. I think that now is a good time as any to start talking about Orris. But before we do, I do want to share that one natural material, the Violet Leaf Absolute. And it is in this particular vial here. And let me see if I can show this to you. Ooh, I love the smell of it. So powerful too, the concentration of Violet Leaf Absolute. It is green, people. This is green, a very dark green. It's kind of hard to notice. Very viscous and green. This is a very green smelling material too, one of the greenest smelling materials available in the natural realm. Much like galbanum, but a very different kind of green than galbanum. Galbanum's much more leafy, stemmy yellow green, and this is a dark green leafiness, almost like vegetation, almost like spinach-like when it's concentrated. But once this is diluted, you can see now you can see it's a little, you can see it as it's on this little scooper, that greenness somewhat. Beautiful smelling stuff. And this is naturally used for violet leaf, a violet leaf note, violet leaf cord, or also for violet flower It's used to naturalize it, impart that natural quality to it. Oh, here's a good example of showing the green. We'll take this tissue here and I'll show you, almost like I'm using it as a pigment to show you the greenness of it. This is solvent extracted from the leaves of Viola odorata, the leaves of the sweet violet, the fragrant violet. See that? That's how green it is. Isn't that cool? Oh, it smells so nice. So that's Violet Leaf Absolute. So we're now going to move over to the orris, the iris. And let's start off with the synthetics and then move on to the orris root. We'll show you what that looks like. So the key component that gives orris its scent is alpha iron. Alpha iron. Can't do the focus here, but you can trust that this is alpha iron. Once I get a better camera, I can do all that fancy focusing. That's coming up next. So the odor description for alpha iron: floral, raspberry, violet, powdery. Really diffusive, voluminous, tenacious. It is the quintessential iris note. It's iris, plain and simple. And it is the queen of all iris molecules. Very precious fragrance ingredient. Very expensive. So a little goes a long way, though. That is alpha iron. Then we have a little something here. And it is called Irrival. Let me see. Make sure I have it here. This is one of my favorites. Irrival. This is made by IFF. This is a reconstitution that reflects all the different facets of the natural orris absolute. The floral, the woody, the powdery, the gourmand, the cold, the warm, everything. And from my reading, it is rumored that Irrival was used among so many other different types of orris materials in Maurice Roussel's composition for Iris Silver Mist from Serge Lutens, which I have right by my side here. We're going to be talking about that a little bit. Irrival or Irrival. We have Orivone, which is fascinating stuff, very woody, almost camphoraceous. This is a very earthy, mossy, very much on that side of orris. It really brings out all those qualities. Orivone. This is also produced by IFF. This is Vanoris, also from IFF. Very pleasing orris effect. Fruity, woody, diffusive, soft. Lovely to smell. Now, there was another Isaraldine earlier, which was Isaraldine 95. This is Isaraldine 70. Methyl gamma 60%. Another rich, fine violet note. This is much more orris-like, though, much more dry than the Isaraldine 95. It's flowery, it's woody, it's spicy, and it's very diffusive. It creates body and volume in a perfume composition. And there's some others like this one. This is Irisone Alpha 90. Very much a heavy top note, does a lift, provides a lift for the orris, brings that orris all the way to the top. Then we have Bois Iris. As you can imagine, this is woody, hence Bois Iris. Woody noanone is the other name for it. It's a very rich, woody chemical. It's often used with patchouli and sandalwood and vetiver to create that ineffable orris-like feeling without necessarily getting a whole iris note into the mix. It's Bois Iris. And then we have Velvetone. The name is a great name for it. It smells velvety. It smells like velour. Beautifully textural. This is it's violet, it's iris, it's woody, it's dense, it's musky. Very cool stuff. That's Velvetone. And Vetaricia, which is Vetaricia. This is iris with vetiver facets. Cool stuff. Very much. This is also one that would really give a lift in a composition. It would bring some of the heart and the base up to the top. That's produced by Firmenich. And we have some great bases as well for those who, using orris root might be a cost issue. Because orris absolute and orris concrete, very expensive materials. Orris butter. This is Orris Givco from. This is made by Givaudan. This is a proprietary. This is a proprietary base that's available to the perfumer. And it makes for a great replacement for using orris root. Iris OA is another example of a base that can be used. Very similar. And now let's get to the naturals. We'll start off with this. This is a tincture. This is Orris tincture from France. This is from the Resinoid, a 10% tincture. Very dark, as you can see. Gorgeous stuff, intoxicating. And then, last but not least, the grand star, the true treasure of perfume. This is from I purchased this from Eden Botanicals. This is Orris butter, 15% irones. The higher the irones, the more noble, we will say. The better the quality, I guess you could say. The more intensely Orris. And it is called Iris butter for a reason. It is buttery. It can be scooped out and then dissolved in alcohol. And it is absolutely beautiful to smell. It's unlike quite anything else. It has carroty qualities, it has rooty qualities, it has violet qualities to it, it has a powderiness to it, it has this waxiness to it. Just sublime. And there's something that I remember watching Katie Puckrick video where she points out that Orris can smell a lot like fresh cash, fresh money. And this, to me, it reminds me a lot of that too. But then so many other things, like I pick up like radish as well, but then also these floral qualities, like just unbelievable. There's something to be said about smelling these naturals in isolation. And if you can, see if you can procure a small sample for reference. So those are all of the perfume materials that I wanted to share with you in the first hour. We made good time. We're at 7:58. In the next hour, I will be discussing the fragrances in my collection that prominently feature violet and iris. And that should be a good chat. Just a reminder, if you enjoy this content and would like to support the channel and further content, don't hesitate to buy me a coffee. A coffee is $5 each. 6 cups gets you a sample pack. US and Canada only, please. The link is pinned at the top of the chat at buymeacoffee.com/JosephColeP. And also, if you haven't already done so, please don't forget to give a like. If somebody can give me a like count, we have 22 people tuned in. I should expect at least 22 likes. If somebody can let me know how many likes we currently have. And I'm going to get back to the chat here. Thank you very much, Junkie Sent. I know you always do, and it's always appreciated. That shadow, my likeness, I kind of like using cucumber natural aldehyde. Yeah, and tomato leaf absolute for violet leaf aspects. Cis-3 hexanol, if I'm not mistaken, you're referring to that. Very nice. Favorite precious violet, Guerlain après l'onde, which is at my side. We'll be talking about that soon. Felix Weiss, what is your favorite violet scent, Mr. Colborn, and what would you say is the most innovative one? We'll get to that in the next hour. Violet leaf diluted presents itself much more attractively, of course. Yeah, the density is a little bit overwhelming for certain noses. I find it fascinating, but your standard nose might find it a little bit overwhelming, a little bit less vegetative or vegetal. Tom says is it the volatility of the molecule or the amount used that determine top, mid, and base notes? A little of both. So the materials that have a certain volatility to them are definitely going to be much more top heavy, and they're going to diffuse more, they're going to throw, and they're going to evaporate faster. However, also bear in mind that every material has its own discrete top, mid, and base, which is why when you're first smelling something, you can smell things like sandalwood and patchouli and labdanum and vetiver, because even though they're considered base notes because of their high molecular weight, they're denser, they still diffuse, and you're picking up the top notes from that. But then there are other materials that can help facilitate. So when I say lift, when I say pull it upward, those are the other materials that can elevate them, where they may not necessarily be as diffusive on their own. So there's a lot of different pieces in motion in perfumery where it involves low molecular weight, highly diffusive, fast evaporation materials like your citruses, for example, bergamot, a lot of herbs and spice oils that are not in absolute form. They might be in essential oil form, aldehydes. Those are the ones that are more volatile, faster evaporation, lower molecular weight, high diffusivity. Ricky Tomatoes asks, is Givco just short for Givaudan? Givco is a brand name for Givaudan. Givaudan uses Givco in conjunction with its suite of products that are at the disposal of the perfumer. But it is, if you ever hear Givco, it's produced by Givaudan. And you also ask, how volatile are these materials? Do they make good top and mid notes? They make all different types of top, heart, and mid. Just as I was saying earlier, every discrete material has its own top, mid, and base, but the more the lighter molecular weight ones, the more diffusive ones, they're going to be much more top heavy. They will have their own dry down, but the dry down comes in sooner. So think of it this way: you're looking at a perfume, and you have these different there's different development curves for all these different materials. So the challenge for the perfumer is to be able to get all of these materials together to work out in such a way so that you have this as close to a seamlessness as possible. So you have these seamless transitions, and that you know where one thing is going to start to evaporate and it's going to start to fade while another one comes in, eclipses with it, merges with it, crosses over, intersects, all this good stuff. Thank you very much for the count. 23 likes so far, 24 people tuned in. Let's try to bring it up to 30 likes. We're going to take a quick break here, quick intermission, and we will be back in just a moment for the second hour, which will involve my favorite violet and iris perfumes. So we'll be back in a moment. And welcome back. We're in the second hour of the Notes and Chords Violet and Iris stream. And I'm going to get started in chatting about my favorite fragrances that really focus on violet and iris. Now, this is just a portion of the fragrances that I have in my collection that feature, violet notes, iris notes. But they're in so many fragrances. There's something about violet and iris that creates a mood, it creates a feel. It sort of shades, they shade things. They pull things in a certain direction that is otherwise absent without them. So even if violet and iris are not the prominent notes, you're going to find them in a lot of different fragrances. These materials, you may not even see violet or orris or iris listed in the notes pyramid, but these materials that I was just discussing in the first hour may be part of the composition. Megarin, hi JJ and everyone from the cold and rain-drenched Melbourne. Scent of the day, Boucheron Jaipur EDP. JJ, have you tried Pour Nom de Caron Le Soir? It is said to have both violet and iris in it, plus lavender. I can't say that I have. I haven't tried those newer flanker releases from Pour Nom. I have the original and Pour Nom Sport, which is quite lovely in the summertime. But I haven't tried the Noir, or isn't there a Blanc as well? I have not sampled it. Next time I'm in Canada where I can actually sample Capons, say if I'm in Montreal, I'll give it a try. So let's start with the violets. Après l'onde. There's après l'onde. After the shower, as in the rain shower. I wrote a review on Apelonde. I'm going to let that review speak for itself. I'm not going to talk about different versions and formulations and, you know, whether or not you should seek out older ones, because the thing is it's really tough to capture Apelonde as it was meant to be experienced because of the volatility in this. So a lot of people will seek out older versions of Apelonde and they'll be disappointed with the first 20 minutes or so that have turned to get a pretty beautiful heart and base. But I feel like it's necessary to, short of going to Osmotec, to smell a newer version of it to get that experience of those ionones that we were talking about. And there's just something so reflective and melancholy about it. It's really a poetic perfume, in my opinion, and it is not meant to, you know, I call this like it's an experiential scent. It's mostly to be enjoyed by yourself, and if other people are fortunate enough to be intimate with you, and not necessarily sexually or romantically intimate, but within your space, their eyebrows may raise and they'll, that smells quite lovely. And that's how it works. And a lot of people talk about the performance, and you know how much I love to talk about performance metrics. But for me, it has never really been an issue for Apelonde. Not even this version. The version in the B bottle, I haven't smelled the newer version in the inverted heart. But Apelonde, that is among my most beloved for violet focused fragrances. And of course, we have iris here as well. It's violet and iris and anise and some other beautiful stuff that's going on here to create that effect after it has rained, after the shower, on the flowers in a cottage garden. And maybe you're sitting and you're reflecting on unrequited love, something of that sort. So that's Apelonde. This here from Ellena Legrand. Ellena Legrand, this is Violettes du Czar. Violettes du Czar. Now remember, I actually do have a video on my favorite violet fragrances, and that's why I'm not really getting into a ton of detail on them. I'm just sort of recapping them, if you will. I did a video on favorite violet fragrances last spring. This is a much more, if you're concerned about having a more masculine violet sensibility, this is running a little bit more masculine, a little bit more leathery in the dry down, but sort of almost like a Clear de Lucie kind of leather. Top notes are very wintergreen-like. It's almost bracing. I love it. It's like something out of like an old-time barbershop, but not a fougere. It's a barbershop violet. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. That's a Violettes du Czar from Ellena Legrand. And in a similar vein, but really focusing more on the Parma violet feel. This is from Geoff Trumper. This is Ajaccio violets. It's even green in color. And one might ask, does this have to do with the violet leaf that's used? Don't know. It could just be a coloring that's added. But it's much more violet flower than violet leaf. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. I adore this stuff. This is the one that I want to spray on right now. Oof. Old World Elegance. Those top notes, they're quenching. They make my mouth water. And you have that little bit of that camphorous quality to start with, and then it just steers itself into the violet flower scent, that Parma violet smell. So good. That's Ajaccio violets from Geoff Trumper. See if any way I can actually do a proper focus with this. It's not. We're gonna do a camera upgrade soon, so I can do that. I promise you that. It's a beautiful little illustration of the Viola odorata here. And this beauty is from Caron. Name que moi. Name que moi. This is the eau de parfum of Name que moi. And take it out of its box. This is a early to mid 2000s version, I believe, or maybe 2011, 2012. Oh, this stuff is just gorgeous. God almighty. You have to appreciate the early era of modern classic perfume to get into this one, though. But oh, is it divine? This is Name que moi. This is violet via rose, powdery, effulgent, sweet, but also musky and woody. Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. That's Name que moi, the eau de parfum from Caron. This was released in the 1930s, 1940s. It was a while ago. Could have been actually earlier, because I do think. Actually, we'll look it up right now. Let's get the skinny on it. I'll look it up right now as we're live here. Name que moi, Caron, and I was really far off. It was one of the earlier ones, around the same time as Narcisse and Tabac Blonde. It was 1916. No wonder why it smells like it's from another age, another time. It's like a time machine. And it was an Ernest Daltroff. So my apologies. Ernest Daltroff, Name que moi. You can't get any better than this if you love your early 20th century perfumes. There's another Caron from the 90s. The 90s had a sort of a renaissance of violet, because I have a couple of them from the 90s. And the name is sort of a reference to Name que moi, because 1916 had Name que moi, but in the 90s we had A Mémoire, A Mémoire. And this brings the spirit of Name que moi to the 90s technology of perfume, because this is just watery. It's like a watercolor violet. There's even like a tobacco kind of going on here. It's not listed in the notes, but that's what I pick up. It's sweet. It's berry-like. It's just beautiful, beautiful stuff. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg even for the vintage version from the 90s. Check out this lovely bottle. Wouldn't that look nice on the dresser? This is what being an influencer is all about, right? Caron's not paying me anything. Caron does not do anything with influencers at all. They're very traditional in that respect. And this is still in production. I have not smelled the newer versions of it. I think it's still in production. It's been in production until very recently, at least. That's A Mémoire from Caron. And I did say that there were some in the 90s. This is a cool one. This is cheaper than chips, as they say, as the Brits say, cheaper than chips. Réveillon, Réveillon, Réveillon. Eau de toilette. I actually wrote a pretty fun review, and I'll recite that for you folks. It was a review that I wrote today about Eau de Réveillon. I think that will be an apt way of introducing this. So I read, and this... Is it really? Is it really him? Or is it an imposter? Eau de Réveillon is a translucent violet through the lens of an aquatic, with the shore's perimeter all clean, lucid cedarwood and ozonic breezes. Its aromatics of rosemary, pine, and lavender set the tone as well. It's really a signature of the 90s zeitgeist. It's full of winsome optimism and unbridled cheer. Which is amusing when it contrasts with the often brooding and angst-laden music popular in the time. So my brain associates this with alternative radio, which was all the rage the year of its release, which was 1995. I hear Ben Folds Fives, Underground, Tracy Bonham's The One, while I'm sipping on a bottle of Orbits. And I'm mesmerized by its little colorful lava lamp globules floating in the beverage. Have my feet kicked up, wearing my Airwalks, and feeling like I've come correct in every way. If I knew Art of Revillon existed at the time, I surely would have worn this when I was 17 years old. And I know it today, and I love keeping it around for reference because it just tickles those memory and olfactory receptors that unlock that past. It's a fun one, and you can still get this for $15, $20. So it's Art of Revillon. And it's just this watery, aquatic kind of violet with a woody dry down. It's fun stuff. Okay. Let's take a look at the chat here. And Megaran says he has ordered Le Soir, the other one being Le Matin. That's right. It is the lighter one, but it's Le Matin. I love the original in the sport as well. Have them both in Yatagana Robin. Hi, Christy. I'm sorry. I haven't been able to check out the live streams because work has been really busy. We just are starting to settle from a busy season at my job. But I'd like to tune in again. I've been noticing you guys have been still doing that. Like landing on a pillow. Yes. Après Londe, I think you were mentioning that when I was showing Après Londe. Felix Weiss, your version of Après Londe is heavy on the iris, right? Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's not extreme iris, but it's probably a little bit more irisy than, I don't know. It's certainly more irisy than Le Bleu, but I haven't tried too many versions of Après Londe. I am not an expert of the differences from year to year and decade to decade, so I can't really say. And Ricky Tomatoes, this was from a little while ago. Which one are you referring to as far as animalic facets? Were you referring to Après Londe or Villette Tuzard from Maurice Lebrun? Those are the first couple. Oh, lovely to see you, Oriceros, my friend. Thank you for tuning in. I know, right? 1916. I don't know why I was thinking it was a later Caron. It's totally got the vibe. Namek et Moi totally has that vibe of that time period with Ernest Dalchoff. Yeah, over 100 years ago. And I think that Caron does excellent. They're excellent at preserving these original compositions to the best of their ability in spite of any kind of obstacles that are in their way or restrictions. I'm just assuming that this is the real Whiskey Reaper. He is extending an olive branch, and I'm willing to accept. So I'm glad you're enjoying the live stream. And yeah, the first hour I speak primarily of the perfumer materials, the naturals and synthetics. So yeah, be sure to check out the whole archive. Mm-hmm. Hello, Scott Bear. Hello, recent iris acquisition that's becoming a surprise favorite. Molecule 01 plus iris. I've heard some good things about that, as a matter of fact. Miss you too. I will. Things are starting to slow down. Maybe by next week, I'll actually have a little bit of downtime. Just don't tell anybody I work with. No, I could certainly listen in while I'm doing my work. So hopefully I can join at least some of the chat by next week. Let's move on to some more here. We have a couple more violet scents. Anyone like this one? This is Don Tabois. Don Tabois. Frederick Malle. This is one of the most unique from Frederic Malle. This is one that was composed by Maurice Lassalle. Just so moody and mysterious, airy, atmospheric, beautiful. Very forward with violet and musk, but also a pine note. There is these pine needle qualities to it, heliotrope. It drives down to some cashmere and this beautiful woodiness. Really a fascinating composition from Maurice Lassalle. Even a little bit incensey, but it has like this cold, wintry kind of quality to it. But you could wear it any time of year. But I love that juxtaposition because it's unusual and you don't run into it very often. That juxtaposition between violet and with a conifer, with pine. I almost kind of wondered if the material that I was mentioning earlier as well, Covone, was used by Maurice Lassalle in this. The one that is like that I described as a cedar hope chest filled with sweet violets. Dantabois. Then from Jean-Claude Rousseau, I have a very lovely one here. This is Fleur d'Ombre, Violemment. So violet mint. This is a meeting between mint leaves and violets. Has anybody heard of this one? Fleur d'Ombre, Violemment. And this has also that kind of water color feel to it, like an aquarelle kind of feel. It has this fresh minty quality. There's even like a melon, some other flowers in the mix, even a little bit of lily. And this woody, oracey kind of dry down to it. This used to be quite affordable, and it has become a little bit more scarce over time because it's been discontinued. But I think you could still pick this up for under $50, maybe under $60. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Love it. It's Fleur d'Ombre, Violemment from Jean-Claude Rousseau. And I saw somebody mention in the chat, of course we must mention this one. And I am of the belief that you need not necessarily get a vintage version of this because the more recent versions, at least the version that I have here, EA Fragrances version, smells fantastic. And if one were not to realize that this is the iconic gray flannel, they might be mistaken into thinking that it is a very luxurious niche fragrance, if I may say so myself. Oh, it is good. It is so good. Scott Bear says, gray flannel is fantastic. I've worn it a few times this spring, and it has an outdoor hypnotic quality to it. This is not only, the feel of violet flower and violet leaf, but also narcissus. There is a narcissus accord in this, and it really stands out to me. Which is why there are some similarities to this in Hermès Eau de Narcisse Bleu, which was just recently discontinued, as a matter of fact. But like I said, you don't need to get the Jacqueline Cochran version or the New York version or whatever older versions of this. You can, but I think the newer versions are still just, they do embody the spirit of gray flannel, as it were, years ago. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate it. Yeah, gray flannel is a huge love for me. And I would be remiss without mentioning it when discussing violet and fragrance. So I have it right here in tow. Felix Weiss. I saw that mint violet bottle on a perfume collector's fair. I should have bought it. It could have been one of the other Ambles, though. It could have been Amble Rose. It could have been one of the other Amble fragrances, because they all do come in a similar bottle. Unless you did notice that it specifically had that violet colored cap, then it was most likely that. Then we have Narciso Rodriguez for him, the EDP. And this is a rainy day fragrance, if there ever was one. The EDT as well, which I do enjoy and own. But this one, to me, is even more intriguing, because it's just so musky as well. It has like a lot of white musk, and even a little bit of animalic musk to it, just a pinch, just a smidgen. And it smells so pensive. Like it smells gray, like the bottle. Narciso Rodriguez for him. I forgot there was a third Caron. Violet Précieuse. Violet Précieuse. So this is the Violet Soliflor of Caron. And this was released in 1913. Another Ernest Daltroff. This is violet. This is violet leaf. It even has some orris, some orange flower. And it's a grassy, woody vetiver kind of dry down, but not very, very heavy on the vetiver. There's even a little bit of like a tinge of raspberry. Think of the Ionone discussion that we had earlier. Those berry facets. And this is a sheer scent. It's not dense, but it definitely has presence to it. It is another classic for the ages. This is Violet Précieuse. I'll spray some over here. I'll have the Ajaccio violets over here, and I'll have the Violet Précieuse here. Yeah, this is, to me, Violet Précieuse is it's naturalism and a bit of hypernaturalism to it, because of course it's perfume that we're talking about. And because you have the violet flower, and you have the violet leaf, and you have the earth and the grass and the dirt and the woodiness, and then maybe the other flowers in the periphery. Maybe there are some blossoms on the tree. Yeah, so just a classic violet Soliflor, Violet Précieuse from Caron. And that is about going to do it for the violets. Oh, there's one more. Just kidding, there's one more. This is a recent acquisition, a recent discovery. This is Blockies for Walks. I'm going to do a review of this soon. For Walks. I love the name of it, For Walks. Get this out of its container. It's nestled snugly in its box here. Here's the bottle. This is 4 Walks from Blocky. This is composed by Australian perfumer Kevin Verspoor. And what I love is that he bridges the classic approach to a violet-centered fragrance with some modern elements, and there's a balance there. And it smells very, very watery, it's aqueous, but it smells like dewy. It really does smell like you're walking through damp woods that are just the The understory is just carpeted with Viola odorata blossoms, little purple flowers, like what's in the background. I'm going to enjoy doing a proper write-up of this. This is from Blocky for Walks. So that's the last of the violet fragrances. And then I do have a handful of orris fragrances, iris, orris. Remember, there are perfumes that want to pay homage to just the orris root, or really to focus on orris root. But then there are some that want to evoke the smell of certain iris flowers themselves. Because as I was mentioning earlier, you do have certain iris species that have fragrances. We don't get the fragrant material from those flowers. And some of those flowers are not necessarily the iris flowers, the particular botanic species that we get orris root from. But there are going to be some where they have that headspace of the iris flowers in mind. But then some are just all iris, like orris root, which the first one that I'll be talking about that's what it's all about. Let's get to the chat for a moment. Oh, really? Oh, what a coincidence. Fernando says gray flannel smells totally different on paper versus what I get from my skin. Like it. Yeah, isn't that interesting how you get a very different result from having it on paper versus on your skin, and your skin may bring out certain qualities that you didn't even expect. Because you don't necessarily pick them up on that paper, because that paper is anchoring the perfume in a way that your skin isn't. Your skin is warm. Your skin is heating up that perfume and throwing it out into the ether. It is diffusing it. It is allowing it to flourish. Whereas on paper, very slow evaporation, because the paper is it is a cooler temperature. It isn't a warm body. So you're going to smell the top notes for a lot longer, and that development is going to involve a lot more attention. And even when you give that little scent street, that mouillette, some attention over the hours, you're still only going to get part of the picture. It really has to do with how it's going to behave and how it's going to develop, what kind of story it's going to tell in your skin. Oh, which one did you want? Did you want the Violet Précieuse? Scott Bird says a violet iris combo and Francesca Bianchi's Under My Skin. It somehow manages to hold its own against the heavy musk. Great stuff. Ah, the Narciso. Yeah. Yeah, it's a moody one. It's got some shadowiness to it. I think now's the time to share the orris fragrances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have a little bit fewer of the orris fragrances. I just recently shared a bunch of them on my Instagram. So if you want to scroll back a little bit, I did an iris fragrances week. I share reviews, so you can read up more on these. Don't forget, buy me a coffee, helps support this channel and the content, motivates me to do more content, and it just shows your appreciation. So buymeacoffee.com/JosephColeP. Each coffee is $5. If you do 6 cups, you'll get a sample pack, US and Canada only, please. And this is the one. This is the ultimate one. This is Iris Silver Mist. And this is the one where I read that in composing this, the perfumer, who you may think was Christopher Sheldrake, but it was actually Maurice Roussel. Maurice Roussel chose to incorporate as many orris materials as he could possibly he stuffed it to the gills with these Oris materials. Irrival, which I was discussing in the first hour, the Irones, the Orris root, the Orivone, this and that, so it's like layer upon layer. It's almost like a folded pastry with all of this Orris. It is a larger than life interpretation of Orris in the respect that he has exalted every aspect of Orris-rootness. And it does have that sort of that glimmer, that shimmer, that shine, that silveriness. You do get the carrotiness, you get the powderiness, you get that cool shiver, kind of that austere, aloof kind of feel that is a signature of Orris. But you also get sort of that introspective softness as well. It's beautiful. Iris Silver Mist is one of my favorite Orises. Have a good night, Felix. Take care. Yes, the ISM. IYKYK. Next. This is Hermes, Ili, or Iris. Iris, Ili, Iris. Pronounce it however you feel fit. There's no right or wrong. Whatever sounds best to you. This is an Olivia Jacobetti. Brilliant, brilliant perfumer. Oh, God. I love so much of her work. So elegant. It's poetic. Woody. This is a very woody iris. This is iris by way of cedar. And the coriander and the top notes really lift that cedariness, the cedariness in the base. It's cool, it's blue, but it has like a little bit of a honeyedness to it. It's a little sad, but also a little hopeful. It's misty. It's wet. Beautiful. Yeah. Or a great reference iris fragrance. 24 people tuned in. I thank each and every one of you for tuning into this live stream. If you haven't already hit the like, please do so. It helps the algorithm, helps other people see this as well. And I've been making great connections for people just discovering my YouTube channel by chance, doing searches, being suggested to people, which is really cool. We're going to do another one from Hermes. This one is a Jean-Claude Ellena. And this is one I did a recent review for. This is Iris Ukiyo-e. This is a very clean, bright, green, springtime, citrusy iris. Diaphanous, but in the most wonderful manner possible. Diaphanous isn't necessarily a bad thing in perfume. You can't capture a mood, a sensibility with all dense and showy perfumes. Sometimes they need to be a little bit more sheer and gauzy. And Jean-Claude Ellena, the watercolorist of perfume, has developed a mastery in nuance, and that is evident with Iris Ukiyo-e. And this is Iris Cendre or Iris Cendre. This is a more recent discovery. When I visited Etiquette in Montreal last year, I smelled this and I was immediately smitten. This is a beautiful study in iris by Julien Rasquinet. And I know some people have a love-hate relationship with his work. Sometimes he does things that are just so captivating. Other times he really pushes the envelope. He pushes the envelope just enough here so that he brings out, in a way that almost rivals Iris Silver Mist, all of those facets of iris. But then also he contributes a certain smokiness and raw animalic resonance to this too in the dry down, which makes it a standout. Now the smokiness is more of like an incense smoke rather than, you know, a wood fire kind of smoke, but there is this smokiness to it, and it is supported by violet as well. Like I said, iris and violet often go together, often help each other, and work together in tandem in fragrance. So it's Iris Cendre or Iris Cendre. Now this is a less discussed, or less hyped. I don't know how to describe it, but this is an iris that I am quite fond of, but doesn't really get much coverage or discussion for reasons unbeknownst to me. This is Iris de Champ or Iris de Champ from Aubigon, Paris. And this is one that I got some time ago. This was like one of my first iris-focused fragrances that I added to my collection, because at first I was like, I like it in theory, but do I really want to wear it? Is it really for me? I don't really know. I'm confused with this iris. It's such a mysterious and mercurial kind of thing that I can't really wrap my head around. And then once I started wrapping my head around it, I couldn't quit. And this was the first one. And this is a very floral iris. You have a lot of lily of the valley in it as well. It's a very musky, woody dry down. It's quite beautiful. It is much more approachable, if you will, than those colder, more aloof and distant irises. It's much more jovial. I mean, it's not excessively so, but it's a little bit more spirited and approachable. But I think it is just nifty. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. It's Iris de Champ from Aubigon. Lovely, lovely. And it has like this, not heavily so, but this lovely powdery kind of dry down. But the florals that support the iris, like the lily of the valley and the ylang ylang, maybe some wattle, maybe some mimosa, just makes this really a unique one. L'Eau de Merzin from Anatole Breton. This is iris via hay and hawthorn blossom. Hawthorn is a tree that has these blossoms. It's a certain species of hawthorn, not all of them. Certain ones have very fragrant blossoms that are a little anise-like, very starchy, powdery, spicy, almost overwhelming if you were to put your nose closer to the flowers, almost like this like an acrid kind of like cheesy smell. But it's all about the way they smell in the atmosphere. So when you're near one of these hawthorn trees, the smell that it contributes to the air, that more perimeter headspace rather than close to the flower, is what really has given it its reputation of being a pleasant smell in springtime. So you have the hawthorn here, you have a hay accord. So this is almost fougere-like in a way, but there's this beautiful orris in this as well, buttery, soft, creamy orris is in this. So that's L'Eau de Merzin from this wonderful independent perfumer, Anatole Breton. And there is this animalic quality to it too. I don't know if it's really animalic, but it's a little bit of a little bit of skank, just a little tiny, little bitty bit of skank is in it as well. And then last, Iris Shot from Olfactive Studio. This is another one that I did a recent review on and shared on Fragrantica base notes and Instagram. This is Iris Shot. This is a warm, almost gourmand type of iris. So, there are some doughy, bready kind of qualities to iris. And what Dominique Lopion does is he really extends that outward by adding like an almond accord, a certain nuttiness to it. It's a little bit more carroty as well, woody. And this has a very tasteful addition of ambroxan in the dry down. I know ambroxan, everybody sees ambroxan as the enemy. I see it as quite lovely if it is used judiciously by a perfumer to create certain effects and to give that sort of je ne sais quoi, short of using ambergris. But I think it is just very well done, well executed. Iris Shot from Olfactive Studio. That's another delightful Irish fragrance. So those are the Irish fragrances I wanted to share. I think we're going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes answering your questions, checking out the chat, and then we'll sign off. Ricky Tomatoes asks, any thoughts on Frederic Malle's departure from his brand? Well, there are a lot of theories that people have. Could it be that Frederic Malle, it's just time for him to move on to other projects? Is it time for him to just retire from the perfume industry? Is he feeling a bit disillusioned by the sale of Frederic Malle to Estee Lauder and the resulting changes to the brand and decision-making by the number crunchers, as it were? There are a lot of different theories. What can I say about it? I think that maybe some of the panic might be overblown, but it could be warranted. Sorry, I have a migraine tonight. That's why I've been rubbing my face and my head and my eyes and everything. It could affect some of the classics. Maybe they'll continue to water them down or reformulate them. Maybe they will be just fine. I'm not really of the belief that they were all slaughtered to begin with. Some people think that. Some people think that they, they're shells of their former selves. And I mean, some of them have changed somewhat, but we also have to consider that there's multiple reasons for that. It could have to do with restrictions to certain materials and having to reformulate within those restrictions. Or some of it could have to do with the fact that number crunchers want to save money and maximize profit. Be that too. But yeah, my thoughts on it really are, I think that Frederic Malle as a house has had a really great run. It is iconic. They released some of the, the most groundbreaking fragrances of the 21st century, but maybe it has seen its heyday. There's Heaven Can Wait, which was kind of like a return to form, but with his departure, it's anyone's guess what direction they'll go in. So that's all I can really say. I don't think people need to panic and run out and get bottles because, settle down. Like, are you running out of what you have? Are you concerned that they're going to be? I mean, perfumes are going to get discontinued anyway, so it's like, don't panic. But whatever the situation, I wish him the best. He really put the niche category on the map, and what was really integral about Frederic Malle are two things: highlighting the perfumer by name and putting into relief the individual talents of perfumers, and also paying much respect to the history of perfume, revisiting the history of perfume to a newer audience, and taking that into the 21st century so that you see these really compelling creations that look back, but also look forward as well. So whatever happens, you know. It's business. It's all business. You know, we like to say that perfume is all art and it's all artistic, but really money needs to be made. It's a business. So, you know, nothing good lasts forever. You know. What would you consider to be the best current iris scent that could be easily found these days? Easily find. I know what you mean by that because Iris Silver Mist is not easily found. You have to purchase a bell jar on the website. Depending on where you are, it might not even be available. Well, I would say the best current iris scent that can easily found these days would be maybe Iris Sandra from Naomi Goodsir. Because you're going to get some of what you can get from Iris Silver Mist from it. You can get some of what you can get from from Hermes, which I haven't smelled newer versions, but some people say has been watered down. Yeah, that would be my vote. My vote would go with Iris Sandra from Naomi Goodsir. Megarin, Christia Porom for Iris and Violet. I used to have that. It was nice. Nice stuff. It didn't really resonate with me long enough to hold on to it. I think I did do a review for it about 4 years ago, and it was a favorable review. I'd say and I always think about people who are on a budget because I'm not going to take for granted, like, oh, everybody has access to money to buy, whatever perfume that's out there. But I would say if you're on a budget and you would like a nice iris forward, somewhat gourmand, musky, violety kind of scent, the Christia Porom it would be a nice choice. I think that when I got it, it must have been like $35, $40. I don't know if it's still the case, if it's still in production, or I haven't really checked. But yeah, I mean I think it's good. It just the thing with me is like I have to shed off some stuff, and that was just one that like I just felt like I didn't really need to hold on to. I wrote a good review for it. I wore it a number of times, and then I'm like, this deserves a better home where somebody can really get the most use out of it. Science Beer, is it an indolic type of skanky note in that other fragrance? The skanky one. So you're talking about maybe the L'Eau de Merzen, because I mentioned the L'Eau de Merzen has a tiny bit of skank, but then I also mentioned the Iris Cendre had a little bit of it too. If we're talking about the L'Eau de Merzen by Anatole de Batton, it does kind of remind me of a little bit. It does seem a little bit indolic how they can mention it. There's some indole. I feel that, yeah. Darren Allen, I'm curious what materials you like best. Potatoes with violet iris. Potatoes, whoa, maybe your next one. The pair with violet and orris. Oh, the pair with violet and orris. Favorite materials. Well, there's the obvious thing like that is used especially for iris, is parrot seed oil, which brings that to the top notes. But I think maybe more complementary notes is what you have in mind. In complementary notes, I would say I thought it was ingenious that the Italy Deschamps from Ubigant chose Muguet, chose Lily of the Valley, and I love that interplay between Lily of the Valley and Orris. So I would love to experiment with something similar to that without necessarily reproducing this and making it too similar to that. But I think that's really a cool idea to see what you can do with Muguet materials and with Orris materials together. Costus. But that Costus can be used to flesh out Orris. Maybe some others. Um, I love when rose and violet are together. Love that combination of rose and violet. I have a few fragrances. Rose and violet and rose and lavender. There's something about the synergies of each of those pairs that it just does something for me. Orris and vetiver. Violet and geranium could be kind of interesting too. I always think in pears, or I could also think maybe in freeze. In freeze would be kind of interesting too, like maybe violet, cedar, and patchouli. So I'm just sort of like thinking out loud. Hi, Manginosis. Good evening. Thank you very much. Yeah, it sucks that it started to set in like about 20 minutes into the stream, and I'm trying to just have a good attitude and good spirit, and just kind of, faking it till I make it, getting through this, and then I'll lie down and relax after the stream. But I really appreciate, you're looking out for me. It's always good to have you tuning in. Yeah, Mugwe, Lily of the Valley with Orris or Violet together. God, I love spring flowers. 20 people tuned in. If you haven't already done so, please hit the like. Anybody on here who can give me a like count? Let's do a like count. $18 people tuned in. One of you can give me a like count. Let me know. Or am I going to have to open up another tab on it? Thank you, Darren. 32 likes. Brilliant. Let's try to bring that up to... It would be great if I could bring it up to 40 by the time that this live stream ends. So if anybody hasn't already hit the like button, please do so. Let's try to aim for 40 by the time I sign off here. We're going to sign off in just a few minutes. I haven't gotten any coffee here, and you know how I love my coffee. Help a brother out. Coffees are $5 each. If you would like to support the channel by buying me a coffee, or 1 or 2 or 3 or 6 if you want a sample pack, just use the link that is in the pinned comment, buymeacoffee.com/Joseph Kolb P. And I got a little like over there. It popped, but I got a little like. Where are these coming from? I love them. This is some new stuff that YouTube is doing. It was right here, and now it's gone. So the next Notes and Accords will be the last one for this season, because I do take kind of a summer hiatus. It's going to be Fougères. So it's the same format as any other. First hour, I'm going to go through all of the materials, natural and synthetic, that would go towards creating a fougere. And then in the next hour, I will discuss my favorite fougere fragrances. So that'll be the next Notes and Accords, which will be in May. And then we have an effluvium that's coming up. We're going to have an effluvium with Neil Chapman, which should be a great conversation. And if I'm just looking at my calendar now to make sure I give the actual date for that. May 2nd. That will be, if you're on the East Coast, that's going to be in the morning, because Neil lives in Japan. So we're going to be doing that at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, May 2nd. We'll be doing an effluvium live stream with Neil Chapman. $23 people tuned in. I'm going to stick around for just a little bit more. The next video that I'm going to be doing will probably be on geranium. I think a lot of people get confused by what geranium is in perfume. They think that it's the same geranium that their auntie or their grandmother has hung on their porch with the bright red flowers. It's not the same geranium. So this geranium, which is often called rose geranium, is actually a plant in the pelargonium family. It is not actually a true geranium. And pelargoniums have essential oil. True geraniums, like the ones that are on your granny's porch or in her garden, those don't have an essential oil, or at least one that has any kind of yield that can be used in perfume. So I'm going to go over that and talk about its use and so on and so forth. That will be in the next video. And then I want to do a video on top 10 lavender fragrances. I haven't done any kind of video on the YouTube channel on lavender. And then one video that I'm going to do over the summer, I'll just do one video over the summer. I'll do monthly live streams. I'm going to do the summer session of Effluvium like I did last summer, but I'll do one video over the summer, and that's going to be my favorite content creators on YouTube, Instagram, wherever else, TikTok. I don't really do TikTok, but if they happen to be on TikTok, then they'll show up on the video. I just don't know their TikTok content, but mostly like YouTube and Instagram and other types of social media. So my favorite content creators, which will not include influencers. I don't do influencing. I've been told that I'm an influencer. I don't do any partnerships with brands. I have gotten gifts, but the gifts I can count them on one hand. I'm not looking for them. I'm not asking for them. I'm only offered them. I don't ask for them. I don't expect them. And it's only when I've established a good relationship with a brand or a perfumer that even happens. Because if it's with a brand or a perfumer who just tries to send me something so I could blow smoke up their ass, I'm not doing it. And I just don't believe in it. I just don't believe in that kind of operation. I don't believe in that hustle. And I don't want to be associated with it. And yes, I'm going to be blunt about it. It's not what I do. I like to think what I do is just to share the passion, just like any other, human being who shares a passion of perfume. I like to educate. I like to be educated. I like to be just as much of a student as a teacher. I like to do this as a courtesy. I'm not looking to make money off of YouTube. The money I make off of YouTube is peanuts anyways. But it's really user supported. It's really viewer supported. So whatever help I get is from those who actually care about my content more so than whatever YouTube gives me or whatever else. So therefore, I'm not really looking to make a career out of this. I would never want to do that. I wouldn't want to quit my full-time job because it pays me very well and I love it. So that's why I like the kind of pace for my YouTube channel, doing about one piece of content a week. It's the perfect pace for me. Could not do any more than that. I really honestly don't know how anybody could keep up with somebody who's doing a video once a day. And how could they possibly say anything of substance if they're doing videos every day? I don't get it. I wouldn't want to watch it. That's just me. Other people, that makes a difference. So to me, I feel like quality is much better than quantity. Do this once a week, live stream 1 or 2 videos a month, if that, and to just make sure that it's just good quality. And I have things that are worth talking about as far as perfume. So that's just where I come from. And that's where I'll continue to go. That's the direction I'll continue to go. Primarily what I like to do is I like to write about perfume, and that's going to be my main focus. And this is complimentary. It's like a little kind of like, a compliment to my writing, to join you folks here, those of you who have been really supportive and really just engaged in this whole exchange that we have. The loyal people who have been tuning in, I know who you are. You mean a great deal to me, and I'm glad that you've been there. Many of you have been there since the beginning. It's been almost 2 years since I started this channel. I'm happy with the amount of subscribers that I have. It's, under 2,000. It's, I don't know, not even 1,700. And that's fine with me, because I'd rather have subscribers and people who are tuning in who really genuinely care about this amazing world of perfume than to try to do the hustle and try to get as many subscribers as I can and dilute the content and do all of that, jiggery pokery and deceptive bullshit. It's not for me. So that's my whole spiel on all of that. I think it's about time for me to sign off. It's been wonderful having all of you. It's always a pleasure doing these, and I will be back. Not sure if I'm going to do any content next week. I may do another video. Tune in, or stay tuned rather. You'll know if I do. And then on May 2nd, we're going to do an effluvium with Neil Chapman. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I hope that you can make it to that as well. So until next time, I hope that everybody has a wonderful evening, morning, or afternoon, wherever you may be on the globe. And take care. Bye-bye now.